So, Ororon is finally here, our edgy bat boy from Natlan. Interestingly enough, despite the significance in the story, he is a 4-star and not a 5-star, which is totally fine because that makes him more accessible. But how good of a 4-star is he? Who does he help out? Honestly, that's really up for interpretation, but today we're going to look into who I think Ororon will help out a lot. Not exactly what teams he will fit in general, but who he will actually help bring new archetypes for. Perhaps some characters that have never had a type of option that Ororon can bring. Before I get into which characters I think he will help, let's go over his kit. As I said, Ororon is a 4-star Electro bow character. His normal attack is pretty much just a basic set of normals with a charge attack with an Electro infusion. This is not really the main part of his kit, but it's still notable. The real interesting parts of his kit are his skill, burst, and ascension passives. Ororon's elemental skill is called Night Fling. Ororon manifests an ancient mystical technique from the Masters of the Nightwind as a spirit orb of Midnight Shade and throws it at his foe, dealing Night Soul aligned Electro damage. When another opponent is nearby, the spirit orb will bounce between them, dealing Night Soul aligned Electro damage. Each time Night Sling is used, each opponent can only be selected as a target once. After 3 bounces, or if there are no eligible targets left, the orb will disappear. Ororon's elemental burst, Dark Voice's Echo, is basically an off-field spinning attack. Ororon works an ancient ritual dealing Night Soul aligned AoE Electro damage, summoning forth a supersonic Oculus. The supersonic Oculus will continuously taunt nearby opponents and attract attacks from them, continuously rotates and fires off sonic waves that deal Night Soul aligned Electro damage. So this works similar to like Official, but except it's AoE, so this is actually a little bit different. It's not exactly single target like Oz is. This opens up the floor for a lot of different varieties of teams. Now here come the real juicy parts of Ororon's kit. His Ascension 1 passive, Nightshade Synesthesia. After a nearby party member triggers a Night Soul burst, Ororon will gain 40 Night Soul points. Within 15 seconds after using his elemental skill, when attacks from other party members who are Hydro or Electro hit opponents, Ororon will gain 5 Night Soul points, an effect that can occur every 0.3 seconds for a maximum of 10 times during the 15-second duration. Ororon can have a maximum of 80 Night Soul points. Okay, so this part is nothing too crazy. He gains Night Soul points whenever Hydro and Electro reactions happen, which is cool, but what do the Night Soul points do? Whenever a nearby opponent takes an Electro Charge reaction damage or Night Soul aligned damage dealt by your characters, Ororon will consume 10 Night Soul points, provided he has that amount, and enter a Night Soul Blessing state, triggering the Hypersense effect, dealing Night Soul Electro damage based on 160% of Ororon's attack to 4 nearby opponents. The aforementioned effect can be triggered once every 1.8 seconds. So this is where the majority of his damage comes in. You basically want to trigger Electro and Hydro reactions, basically Electro Charge only, in order to be able to trigger this effect, which is going to be constant Electro bursts based on Ororon's attack stat. This is what's going to contribute to most of his damage. So obviously Taser seems to be a pretty important team, for him, so that he can set off these reactions and be able to trigger the passive, but what else does he have available that can help the team? Well, his Ascension 4 passive, Aspect Catalyst, is actually pretty interesting. After the elemental skill Night Sling Spirit Orb hits an opponent, Ororon will gain an Aspect Sigil for 15 seconds. When a nearby active party member hits an opponent with normal, charged, or plunging attacks, that character restores 3 energy. And if Ororon is off-field, which he will be most of the time, Ororon will also restore 3 energy. This effect can trigger once every 1 second and can trigger 3 times per duration. It's clear that you want to basically fit him in with Electro and Hydro teams, and you also want to give him to people who want energy recharge. These are the important things that Ororon is able to offer, so who exactly fits that bill and who can benefit from that? That's what I'm going to go over today. One thing I want to cover before entering into this discussion is the fact that a lot of transformative reactions are gaining a buff in 5.2. Among them are Electro Charge, Overload, Superconduct, and Shatter. These are all reactions that have not really had the most support over the years, so it's nice to see that a lot of different buffs and characters have been coming out to try to help support these. In terms of these characters, we're going to describe them basically based off element. So Electro first, Hydro second, and then others later. Yes, there are others who can actually benefit from this. So the main one I want to get out of the way is Clorand. I think Clorand's just going to be the easiest plug and play character, where it's just kind of another option that she can have. I think a really interesting abuser of Ororon in a Taser team will be Cyno. Now, Cyno is someone who's obviously a bit energy hungry. You need to build quite a bit of energy recharge on him, especially if he's a solo Electro, but Ororon will be able to help with being an Electro partner in the team, so you're triggering the Electro Resonance, which provides more particles. Ororon will also be able to provide more energy through his Ascension 4 passive, and will also synergize with other units in the team. So you could run something like Cyno for Rina, Ororon, and then Jean, or Sigewinne, or something like that, in order to create a taser setup. Cyno will appreciate the energy reduction in the team, and also be buffed by Ororon thanks to Ororon most likely using the Scroll of the Cinder City artifact set. This is most likely the case because he's not an on-field DPS doing damage with his Night Soul bursts frequently on-field, so he would not be someone that you'd want to use Obsidian Codex on. Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City will still be able to activate, thanks to him getting into a Night Soul Blessing state, and also buff the damage of the team and provide energy. It's going to be a lot better as an off-field DPS / support unit. Sethos is another character I think will greatly benefit from Ororon in a taser setup. Sethos is a very energy hungry character in general. No, not because it's hard to hit his ER requirements, but because he uses energy in his charge shot playstyle. In a taser setup, Ororon will be able to trigger his Ascension 4 passive quite frequently, which in turn will restore energy to Sethos very frequently throughout his rotation. So you can start off with Sethos and use his skill. Then you can set up someone like Xingqiu or Farina and set up their skill and burst. You could throw Ororon's skill out and then his burst, throw out a Xilonen or a Jean and use their VV, and then you're good to go with Sethos. In this setup, I'm assuming you're probably going to be using a charge shot setup, which is repeatedly going to be using his energy, and because the energy refund is going to be relatively high with Ororon, you should be able to get off more shots within your rotation. Yai Miko is another character I'd like to visit because I think this character would appreciate the energy refund and also is really good off-field and on-field in the taser setup. Let me explain. Yai Miko has an off-field skill, kind of like Fischl and Ororon, but Yai Miko is also a character that's able to be on-field at the same time thanks to being a Catalyst user with infused normal attacks. So you could put her in a taser setup where she'd be able to set up a lot of different electro charge reactions easily with her normal attacks or her off-field skill at the same time. Because the energy refund from Ororon is going to be rather important, you're able to burst more frequently within your rotations, dealing a lot more electro damage. Lisa is also someone who could do a similar thing like Yai Miko, and Lisa is also a very energy hungry character. So Ororon being able to synergize with Lisa in that sense, while also being able to open up a taser setup is really good. In terms of Hydro characters, Ayato is someone I'd like to talk about. Ayato's burst has a very large AoE. This makes it very easy for Electro characters to set up a lot of Electro Charge reactions. Taser setup with Ayato, Ororon, and maybe Fischl or Beidou could actually be really strong. You could even pair in someone like Kokomi or Kazuha or Jean in order to set up VV, or you could use Xilonen in order to shred the resistances. Kokomi is someone I'd like to talk about as well. Kokomi is a great on-fielder for the same reasons like Yai Miko and Lisa. She would be able to constantly trigger electrocharge reactions because of her infused normal attacks with Hydro. If you have an off-field applier like Ororon and then Fischl in the team, or even someone like Beidou, you'd be able to constantly trigger electrocharge reactions. I think this is going to make Kokomi a lot better in these kinds of setups. She was already pretty decent, but this makes her a lot more prominent, and it should have quite good damage output. Another notable character I want to talk about is Sigewinne. Now, Sigewinne is very unique, whereas she doesn't really use normal attacks to trigger the Ascension 4 passive, but Sigewinne would be able to benefit from an on-field kind of playstyle. Sigewinne kind of benefits from quick swap teams, so she could be paired with like Yai Miko, Ororon, and even Farina, and then they could be a team where Sigewinne plays on-field, and then you're swapping between Yai Miko, Farina, Ororon, Sigewinne, etc. And Sigewinne would be on field using her burst, which has a short duration, but the energy refund could be taken advantage of thanks to the Electro resonance that you're getting from Yai Miko and Ororon. Ororon's Scroll of the Hero Cinder City would give energy. His skill would be on opponents, so then you'd be getting energy from the Ascension 4 passive. He's dealing damage with Ascension 1 passive. Farina's buffing the team. Sigewinne heals a lot for the team. It'd be kind of interesting to see how that setup would work. Interestingly enough, Anemo characters are going to get some sort of buff from this too, and most of you would probably know about Sucrose Taser, but for those who don't, let me talk about it. Sucrose Taser is a very unique 4-star team that basically prides itself on triggering as many reactions as possible and buffing EM. Electrocharge is a transformative reaction that appreciates elemental mastery, so Sucrose is great because of the infused normals to be able to trigger Swirl, which in turn triggers a lot of electrocharges, and she provides an EM buff through her kit. This makes her, Fischl, Beidou, and Xingqiu a really strong 4-star only team. Now, Ororon would actually fit in very well, obviously, due to the Hydro and Electro elements being very prominent in the team. You could probably replace Fischl in the team, but I could see you being able to replace Beidou as well, but Beidou offers some interruption resistance alongside Xingqiu, which could be appreciated, so that might be the more favorable setup to be able to replace Fischl in that team. Interesting that something like Sucrose Taser is going to get a buff, but hey, it is true and it's notable, and I think it's worth talking about. As I said, Night Soul aligned damage is also something that triggers his Ascension 1 passive. This means that someone like Mualani, Kinich, Shilonen, whatever you're doing, could technically benefit from Ororon or trigger Ororon's passive, but it's not ideal. But someone that could, that is also Animo, is Chasca. Chasca's kit allows her to be able to shoot bullets that are aligned with the element of the other team members. If Ororon is in the team, that's going to provide an Electro one. If you have a Hydro member in the team, like a Xingqiu, that's going to provide a Hydro one. Let's say you throw one more character in there, I don't know, Kokomi or something, and that's going to be another Hydro bullet. So Chasca is going to be shooting 3 Animo bullets and then going to be shooting a Hydro, Electro, and a Hydro one in some sort of order. This makes her a very interesting character to work with Ororon, and it's no surprise to see them on the same banner. Alright, so that's pretty much everything that I could think of for Ororon that's unique or notable. Do you think I cooked, or did I not really do the best job? I don't know, that's really up to you, but this is just my opinion through speculation. I'm definitely going to try to get him on the banner. We'll see if I do. If I don't and I get unlucky, then it is what it is, but I'm going to try and test him out as much as I can when I do get him. I'm really excited for Ororon, and I think he'll have a very awesome impact on my account and many other people's accounts in the future. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video about Ororon, please feel free to comment whatever you want, subscribe, like the video, show as much support as you can. Honestly, it's all I ask for, because it means a lot to see you guys appreciate the content that I'm putting out and putting in hard work in order to entertain you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and take it easy.